Britain is this great big melting pot of cultures, history and traditions, is what I would say if I was a massive Tory prick. I see Britain as more of a fridge. Loads of weird stuff shoved into it, half of it's rotten, some of it's been wrapped in cling film since the late 90s, and you don't really know what you've got until you open the door and take a good sniff. That's Britain. Inside this fridge, you've got all these different types of British people, characters, stereotypes, the absolute lot. And once you start spotting them, you cannot unsee them. It's almost like Pokemon, but instead of trying to catch them all, you're doing everything in your power to try not catch something. Take the Tories. Ah yes, the Tories. They're easy to spot, they've always got that faint look like they've smelt something ghastly, usually it's the stench of poor people. They're the ones who wear Barber jackets and tweed flat caps in the summer, talking about the market or Waitrose like it's some divine being. Their favourite hobby, making sure you're absolutely miserable while riding a horse. You could tell a Tory you've just won the lottery, and they'd smile politely and say, well, don't get too excited, inheritance tax will sort that out. But Tories aren't just politicians. No, no, no. You find them everywhere. They're the bloke in the pub who says, I'm not racist, I've got loads of mates who are black, and then spends 20 minutes and 3 pints of IPA proving he definitely is in fact racist. They're the woman who says, I've worked hard for everything I've got, and you find out her dad owns half of Surrey. Their natural habitat being the village fete, snobbily sipping warm Prosecco and muttering about how the bins just aren't collected like they used to be. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum entirely, the ultra-lefty alternative TikTok types. They're everywhere online, usually with brightly dyed hair and a ring through their nose the size of a carabiner, exposing their last 7 X's in their Instagram highlights, every sentence beginning with late-stage capitalism is killing us all, followed by a dance to a Doja Cat song. They've never had a proper job, but they've got thousands of followers who tune in daily to hear them explain how landlords and white men are basically war criminals. And don't get me wrong, none of them make good points, but there's something about hearing a 19-year-old who still lives with mum and dad in Brighton tell me about the evils of the free market while wearing a £90 pair of Doc Martens. It really makes me think, mate, maybe get a job at Pret before attempting to dismantle capitalism. And of course, somewhere in the middle, you've got your classic Labour voter, salt of the earth, hard-working, proper British bruiser. They'll tell you, this country's gone downhill since Thatcher, and you think, yeah mate, you've said that every day since 1987. They hate the Tories, they also hate Keir Starmer. They'll stand in the pub, pint in hand, raging about politics, then spend election day getting sloshed while fishing because all of these politicians, they're basically all the same. Proper British logic. Now, the most iconic British species has to be the chav, our newest version being called the roadman. It's evolution, really, isn't it? Darwin would be having a bloody field day. Back in the early 2000s, the chav was a simple being. Tracksuit bottoms tucked into socks, Kappa jacket, a Nokia brick phone, maybe a pit bull called Tyson.
Poor Tyson was so scared he's run up a tree and ate a bird's nest.
Their natural habitat was loitering outside McDonald's and Ladbrokes, shouting abuse at strangers and nicking the odd traffic cone. Primitive, but effective nonetheless. But then, over time, the chav evolved, like some sniffed-up Pokemon. Except instead of becoming something majestic, or even evolved, they became the roadman, a terrifyingly new breed of council estate crusaders. They've still got the trackies and a low self-esteem. They're now just more prominent and more accepting of dressing and acting like a tosser. They've still got the man bag across their chest, a basic education, but now they've got aspirations. They're no longer content with shouting at wrinkly women anymore. They now have dreams of being Pablo Esso Garage. You'll see them in the park at night, a sword down their trousers, narrowly missing their fire trap boxers. Snapchat open, putting on their best drill voice.
I'm gonna swing man's arm and mash man's jaw. You're up still.
Avoiding their small family at home, not being able to wrap it up, but ironically rapping about a life of crime, while secretly living with their mum and fiance in a semi-detached home in Luton. And the accessories have leveled up too. The old chav had a bottle of White Lightning. The roadman, he's got a vape the size of a fire extinguisher, and in most cases, some grey tracksuit bottoms that are essentially a roadman mating call. And we cannot forget the sword, can we? There is no time to relax. You're walking home from Tesco, you see a fish 15-year-old in a shiny puffer jacket, and your brain goes, right, so am I about to get robbed for my meal deal or knighted? And that's the thing. They want to look like these gentrified gangsters, but half of them couldn't fight their way out of paying for child support. It doesn't matter how old you are. If a roadman says, oi, let me hold that, you're not pulling out your Johnson, you're handing him your iPhone. That's the unspoken law of Britain. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, you've got the posh lot. People always get them mixed up with Tories, but I assure you, they are not the same. Tories are middle-class strivers who think that buying a motorhome and banging on about their National Trust membership makes them upper class. Posh people are something else entirely. They're the ones with the double-barreled surnames that sound like an accountancy firm, voices that come out halfway between a yawn and a sigh.
It's more fun being on the drinking side, but yeah.
And Labradors called Percival or Duchess. They grew up in boarding schools where their biggest trauma was being forced to eat custard that wasn't organic, with their idea of suffering being when Ocado delivers the wrong type of hummus. Back in the day, they were the rather jolly after a sip of pork crowd. Back when everything was supper, not dinner, and within 30 seconds of meeting you, they'd tell you about the family estate, and you'd be sat there thinking, yeah, very nice, mate. My 2-bed semi-detached in Swindon with a mould problem is literally the same thing, really. But poshness has evolved, you could say. These days, it's a lot less tweed and hunting dogs, more mulleted, out-of-touch trust fund babies in Monaco filming TikToks on yachts. They've taken to dressing like early 2000 chavs, Burberry caps, gold chains, the full Vicky Pollard starter pack, which is hysterical considering their great-grandparents were probably the ones shunning them. Now it's all just this big laugh, isn't it? But I suppose when you've got a trust fund, it's almost like you're playing Minecraft in creative mode, isn't it? And the way they try to be relatable is even funnier. Oh, look at me, I'm rolling some baccy. I'm basically working class. Meanwhile, the only shift they've ever done is when their maid went on holiday. You see them on TikTok saying things like, oh, no one understands the struggle like I do. Just imagine this bloke sat on a balcony in the south of France with a bottle of rosé that costs more than your car. You don't know hardship. Oh, and don't even get me started on the races. It's not just the grey-haired silver spooners anymore. Oh no. Now it's a swarm of 20 to 30-year-olds in designer tweed tracksuits with hats so big that they could double as drone landing pads. They're all swigging Aperol spritz like it's water and muttering stuff like, such a vibe, at a horse that looks about as motivated as me on a Monday morning. Bets are flying about like someone's throwing Monopoly money at a wind turbine, and somehow everyone's convinced they're going to go viral if their horse wins. By the end of the day, half of them are shouting, "Go on, my boy," into the sunset, phones in hand, like they're directing a blockbuster, and honestly, I hate every single aspect of it. That's the difference, I guess. Tory is more politically charged, conservatism, caravans, and thinking they're posh because they've bought a house in Wiltshire named something like the Old Granary. Posh is pedigree, Labradors, family money, and now in some cases, this bizarre chavtastic cosplay. And the worst part is, they genuinely think that they're pulling it off. I feel that there was a lot more to cover in that section, but now we have the hippies, the free spirits, the ones who haven't worn shoes since 2004. They smell faintly of incense and regret. They'll tell you all about how capitalism is destroying the planet while selling you a £20 dream catcher they bought off Amazon. You see them at festivals covered in glitter, dancing to a drum circle like they've just been possessed, and you think, mate, you're 43 years old, you've got 2 kids, a Nissan Qashqai, stop pretending you're a woodland fairy. And again, this is another culture that has been stolen and repackaged by posh people, then sold back to the rest of us like it's some artisanal kombucha. They've turned free spirits into a brand, bespoke tie-dye hoodies, ethically sourced crystals, and TikTok tutorials on how to manifest your best life while never actually lifting a finger. They'll lecture you about breaking the chains of the system between Instagram stories of their weekend getaway to a £500 a night treehouse in Devon. And it's maddening, isn't it? Because they've never cleaned a bog, filled out a tax return, or had to actually deal with any form of reality. Yet they talk about the existential dread like they invented it. You spot them at gigs and festivals, phone in one hand, fair trade latte in the other, glitter still stuck to their eyebrows from last week's sound bath, and it makes you think, mate, living off the grid doesn't include having a tent in your family's estate. So the next time you see some smelly braided junkies dancing in a drum circle, they're probably summoning their father's PIN number, not peace and serenity. And of course you have the old gits. Every country has old people, but Britain specialises in miserable dust buckets.
I'm down bloody here and no don't bloody come down bloody.
They'll tell you, oh, you youngsters don't know the half of it, and then only list things that sound objectively worse. Oh, back in my day we had one telly, black and white, 3 channels, and it didn't even turn on half the time. And you stood there thinking, right, so life was simpler back then, and now that apparently means I've got it easier. How does that work then, Dave? Boomers hate everything. They hate the weather, they hate young people, they hate their wife, they hate the price of Freddos, even though they haven't bought one since 1995, and their main hobby is writing angry letters to the council about the bins. And yet they'll sit there in their mortgage-free house, worth $500,000, telling you to stop complaining and work harder. Cheers, Grandad. Have you seen the current housing market by chance? I'll just buy a house with the spare £4.27 in my account, shall I? Then you have the hipsters. God help us. They've colonised half the cities now. You know you're in hipster territory when you see a cafe selling sourdough toast for £6.50. They've all got beards, tattoos of swallows, and trousers so tight that you can see their thoughts. They drink flat whites, own vinyl they've never played, and cycle everywhere on bikes that look like they were stolen from a Victorian orphan. They're always working on a project. No one knows what the project is. It could be a podcast. It could be a memoir on how to be a pretentious piece of shit. It could be a startup that sells ethically sourced pomegranate seeds. But they'll go into great detail about these plans while you nod politely and think, you're literally 35 years old and you live in a shared flat. Your current account has enough for maybe 1 bottle of beard oil. Maybe stop with your shitty little magazines and get a job at Sainsbury's, yeah? And of course, Britain wouldn't be Britain without the goths, would it? The eyeliner warriors, lurking around shopping centres in black hoodies, chains rattling, clutching a Monster Energy like it's their missing father figures. They look absolutely miserable. But I guess that's kind of sort of the point, isn't it? Goths are essentially a support group where everyone reinforces each other's misery and they call it a personality. I don't know if this is a good comparison, but it's almost like religion, isn't it? But instead of getting salvation, you get joy division and a permanent vitamin D deficiency. They've convinced themselves that being sad together is quirky and different, when in reality, it's just what happens when you never really quite figure out who you are as a person in your early 20s. The only real danger you get from a goth, I guess, would be falling into one of their earlobes and then maybe being judged for not appreciating Download Festival afterwards. And then you've got the Oompa Loompas. Bright orange tan, teeth whiter than the cliffs of Dover, permanently shouting, oi oi, in bars at 2 AM. They live for Ibiza trips, WKD Blue, Instagram stories of them lip-syncing to Calvin Harris and convincing themselves that poppers aren't extremely gay. Deep down, they're very harmless individuals, but you can smell the fake tan-free postcodes away. Oh, and what about the mums? You've got the Aldi mum, proper militant, knows every price in the store. And then you've got, I guess, the Waitrose mum, floating around with her reusable bags and quinoa. Then you've got the Footie mum, screaming at a 9-year-old referee on a Sunday morning because little Bradley wasn't offside. Absolutely iconic. I feel like I need to do an entire video just on mums. And then you've got the football lads, entire breed of their own, aren't they? Their whole personality is based on the team they support. You could ask them what they do for a living and they'd say United. United! United! Always travelling in packs, singing songs that only contain about 3 actual words. Their greatest joy is spending £80 on a ticket to scream abuse at a stranger running across a little grass pitch. And their greatest tragedy, losing to a rival team and having to smash up a Weatherspoon's chair to process the trauma.
I've been a United fan the day I came out of my mum's vagina.
And with that, you have the pub philosophers. The men, and it's always the men, who stand at the bar, nursing a pint of bitter and explaining the downfall of our society. The problem with this country, they say, is the EU, immigrants, young people, TikTok, cyclists, electric cars, and oat milk. And what does he get on the way home? A in Chinese. And you just stand there, nodding, thinking, mate, I mean, you've got an awful lot of time on your hands here, haven't you? Maybe the problem isn't oat milk and immigrants. Maybe it's you not having a job. So here's the thing. We have all these stereotypes, but we love them all dearly because they're us. Britain wouldn't be Britain without the roadman outside the local premiere, the Tories at the Fete, the hippies at Glastonbury, and the old geezers complaining about the bins. We are a nation of misfits, contradictions, and people who insist on saying cheers, mate, to absolutely anyone, even when they've done nothing to benefit your life. So when people ask me what Britain's about, I don't point to Big Ben or Stonehenge or to an alleged nonce in a big castle. I point to us, the people. The fridge full of weird leftovers, half mouldy, half brilliant, all extremely funny in their own tragic way. Because that's Britain. It's not glamorous, it's not shiny, not particularly functional, it's just us, a nation of Tories and roadmen, hippies and hipsters, boomers and goths, Essex party lads and Audi mums, all crammed together in one little damp island. Tutting at each other, hating everything, and somehow still keeping calm and carrying on. I'd absolutely love to retire in Spain, so if you could subscribe, I'd love to go there and retire and live out my days in Spain. Thank you.